Hi guys, welcome back to Stories Down Under. Today we're gonna handle a fairly hot topic, one of those that are hardly ever talked about, and if it's done behind closed doors, and this is called black tax. I know most people have not heard of this term. The term originally came from South Africa, and it was used to refer to black South Africans who used to work in the mines, and they created this term for the money that they gave to their families out of obligation or the self-ingrained responsibility to support their family members. But in simple terms, black tax just means that simple support in terms of finances that we give to our family members, whether they are nuclear or extended family members, to support them. This happens a lot in Africa. I'm not sure if it happens in other cultures, and it's because in Africa we don't really have that social welfare that citizens or people are helped with by the government like here. So in that sense, we're not here to change the narrative. We're not here to change our cultures, but to talk about ways of managing black tax. What's your experience on this, Stella?
Yeah, thank you. Very well explained. Thank you for telling us. I didn't know how the term was coined, honestly. Thank you so much for that. For me, unfortunately, black tax is a topic that has been very close to me because, unfortunately, I had a dear friend who, when we started uni here, just very, very, very young, a 20-year-old girl who came from Kenya to Australia. And believe you or not, during her studies, she was expected to build her home for the family.
Wow.
Pay her school fees. And we're talking about 15 grand plus a semester, as well as manage her living expenses here in Australia all by herself.
Wow, that's almost impossible.
That's mission impossible. And this, of course, led to a lot of stress. A lot of people are not able to, even as international students, to focus on their studies because you have to work around the clock to be able to pay your school fees, manage your living expenses, as well as help your siblings, help your family, your nuclear family, etc. And this can take a toll on the mental health of people.
Absolutely.
And today we want to talk about how to manage black tax, and I hope this will help you to be able to navigate, because as we said, we're not here to change the narrative. It is what it is. We have expectations, and a lot of people are happy to help, but it can go too far. So one of the ways that you can manage black tax is through budgeting. And budgeting is so important because it will not leave you in a weird situation whereby you've helped and now you cannot pay your bills, you're being kicked out of your house, which I've heard of stories happening. So if you have a clear budget that clearly stipulates what are your living expenses, what are your savings, because of course we need to save to be able to be financially independent, and we don't continue perpetrating the black tax culture to our children, and also to be able to have a small percentage of your money that you've put aside to help. And once you're over that budget, you're not able to help anymore. So you don't want to, because sometimes you wake up in the morning and you're in a WhatsApp group, someone is getting married and they're asking for money to be able to do a wedding.
To that.
Someone is buying a house, someone is traveling overseas for further studies, and you find yourself, someone has died, unfortunately. There are some very genuine needs. Of course, you want to help. And also there's sometimes you find people are asking you to sponsor their wants. If you want to buy a car, if you want to buy a house, some people, you yourself, you don't have a house. You've not saved for that 20% saving that you need to put aside for your mortgage. However, you're supposed to help someone build a house back home, which is absolutely unfair, if you ask me. So please budget. Put a percentage of money aside that you're going to be put aside to help you, to help others. That way you're not carried away. Because as human beings, we are likely to empathize. You don't want to hear someone is sleeping hungry or cannot afford their school fees. But if you have a clear budget, then you're like, sorry, I'm not able to help this month, but next month I'm able to give this much. So it's very clear, and you're able to manage yourself, to create financial independence for yourself, save for retirement, etc. So yeah,
Thanks, Stella. Very good points there. The other one is to communicate and set boundaries. I know that in our African culture, for some reason, we don't really talk openly about money. We don't really talk about finances as our white counterparts. I don't really know why that happens, but it's something that we've just been brought up with. But I think to manage black tax, it's important that you sit down with your family members, have a honest and candid conversation, because at the moment, almost everyone is going through financial difficulties of some sort, because the rate of inflation is high pretty much everywhere. The cost of living is right up there. It's important that you sit down with your family members, talk about their expectations, give them the reality check of your finances, what you're able to afford and what you cannot afford. If you have such honest conversation, if you set boundaries, you'll find that the expectations are sort of lowered. People don't expect too much, and if you're not able to provide, then you won't have to worry so much about disappointing people. So to me, I believe in having those conversations, and right now I'm talking to myself. I've not had the guts or been confident enough to sit down with my family and explain that, look, this is my financial position, this is the much I can afford, and let's have boundaries. I cannot do past this.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. Yeah, that's certainly a difficult conversation to have, but it's one that certainly needs to be had.
Absolutely.
The other one is also sort of empowering your family, financially liberating them through teaching them how to manage their finances. So, for example, people need to live within their means. So,
of course,
they'll, as I said, sometimes you wake up every morning and there's a WhatsApp group. If you're going to have a wedding and you cannot afford it, then postpone the wedding until you can. Please help them to be able to understand that you do, just because you live abroad or just because you're in this position, you also have your own needs. So being able to also teach them how to fish as opposed to giving them fish. So
absolutely,
a lot of us, as you said, people in the African diaspora send an equivalent of
48 billion USD
48 billion
every year.
USD. And most of this money is not money that is sent to invest, rather to give handouts, rather to help somebody buy food, buy their daily expenses. But if you teach them how to manage their finances, help them find ways to actually create financial independency, in the way that you help them create jobs, for example, you could sponsor them, start to farm something. Most of the times farms are around already. The grandparents already live in a farm, so you can help them buy seedlings and fertilizer, etc. That way they're able to farm, they're able to sell the produce. There are so many small businesses, food vendors, cloth vendors, that they're able to financially depend on themselves as opposed to handouts. Especially also one that I really value is education. That's one that is very dear to me. For me, when I hear somebody wants to pursue as a course, maybe a tertiary education, maybe they want to do some plumbing course, masonry, I am ready to give for that, because that way I know it's just a matter of time and they'll be able to financially depend on themselves. So try to build that as opposed to giving handouts, because giving handouts, of course, does not help. Sometimes, of course, you have to cough up money because it's an emergency, but at the end of the day, keep thinking on ways to create jobs, keep thinking on ways to create financially independence among relatives.
Very good points there, Stella. Really good. The next way of managing black tax is investing strategically. I know that most of us as African, when we think of investment, the first thing that comes to our mind is buying land. A lot of people are so much into buying chunks of land back at home, but you don't look at it from the point of view that this is a long-term investment. If you want to manage black tax, try and invest in short-term try to look at short-term investments, look at passive income. What can you do to these people that can generate passive income to them? What can you do that can create jobs to them? For example, doing things like leasing a farm and rearing chicken, are things like that that can generate income to those people back at home, rather than sending them $10,000, 10,000 shillings or 20,000 shillings every month. So if you do that, you'll find out that you've managed sort of, and you ease in yourself in terms of the financial burden that black tax puts into us.
Absolutely. So we are big on trying to stop the cycle. So one of the other points that we want to talk about is making sure that you plan for retirement. So today we are talking about, we are obliged to take care of our parents, our siblings, but we don't want to be perpetrating the same cycle. So you don't want to be asking your kids, your grandkids to take care of yourself. And one way to do that is to plan for retirement. And there's so many ways to do that. And one of them is through superannuation. So for example, any super fund, if you go to their website, they'll be able to tell you how much in the dollar amount that you need in your savings, in your superannuation, to be able to retire comfortably. A lot of super funds and talk about the 25% rule. And what the 25% rule means is basically you need 25 times your annual spend in order to retire comfortably. So before you slam the door at your workplace and say that you're retiring, if you spend 50,000 annually, then you need to do 50,000 times 25, which will give you 1,250,000. So that shows you that, well, once you nail this number, then you're able to retire comfortably. And this is a number that has been calculated, factoring, of course, inflation. Money today is not the same tomorrow. The high life expectancy nowadays, people are living to 100, so that has been factored in. But with that said, every person is different, and I would highly advise that if you're struggling in that area, contact your super. A lot of super have financial advisors that are able to tell you how much more do you need to sort of save, how much more do you need to contribute in order for you to nail your retirement number. And I know sometimes as young people we can be a bit reluctant and think, oh, blah blah blah, I'm still young, got a long way to go.
You think you live forever?
But time is of essence. If you start today, the power of compounding interest, then you don't have to save so much, because they, as you know, with super, they invest your funds and you're able to gain a lot of interest on it. So the earlier we start, and as we say this, we're preaching to ourselves as well, we need to really factor the retirement number.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stella. That is very insightful. The next way to manage black tax would be taking estate planning to another level. The question to you guys is that how many of you take time to think of what happens after retirement? What will you be doing when you're not strong enough to work anymore? Or do you just think of sitting there in aged care and watching TV the whole day? No, the question should be, what will I be doing after retirement? And how well have I set the people I've left behind? Because you don't want to be a black tax to your children. And there are different ways that you can do this. Number one, invest in insurance. There are different types of insurance. And the reason why I'm talking on investing in insurance is to be able to protect your wealth, to be able to take up a cover that can sit in place in case something happens. For example, education insurance. When you're not able to take your children through school, what will happen? Insurance can come in handy. When you're not able to take care of yourself health-wise, life insurance or income protection can come in handy. So look at investing in insurance. The next one is setting up trust funds. Most people don't think of setting up trust funds as an option, but it's a good option of looking after your wealth. It is an independent way of putting up your funds in a way that in case you leave the world today, your beneficiaries, the right beneficiaries, are entitled to this wealth, and it can flow nicely in a way that you do not leave so much financial burden behind. And the next one is appointing a fiduciary, or this is a mouthful of word. So a fiduciary is someone who can look after your interest, financial interest, especially when you're away. For those of us who are in diaspora, it's not easy for you to be back home physically to sign a couple of things when you setting up an investment. So if you have a fiduciary, they can act as a power of attorney when there are transactions that needs, for example, a check to be signed. And these people are bound by law to act on your behalf in a manner that you not be worried that your funds will be embezzled or there will be fraudsters. So it's important, if you can, to have a fiduciary, so they can act on your behalf, they can invest on your behalf, and they can help you protect your wealth in a manner that it should be. And in saying that, I'm not sure, Stella, if you have anything that we may have left.
Yeah, I think in that line is also setting up a will, which is very important. You don't want to leave your family fighting for your wealth.
Of course,
and this will, sometimes people think, oh, I need to be wealthy, I need to have this amount of money. No, whatever you have, you need to set up a will and have very clear stipulation of who are the beneficiary and who's your next of kin. That way, there's like less hassle, because also these are the people that get paid out by your insurance cover. So you need to really have someone help you. There are online platforms that can help you create a legitimate will, as well as you can seek advice from a lawyer to be able to put something in place.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Stella. And in saying that, I know that we've talked about ways of managing black tax. I know that black tax is here to stay. We are not here to change the narrative, as we previously mentioned, and we are not here to come up with an alternative for black tax, but we are just emphasizing on ways that we can manage this so that it's practical, so that we also leave a legacy rather than being a black tax to our children.
Absolutely.
So in saying this, the most important thing is to be proactive, take control of your investments, take control of your assets, look at ways that you can invest that can establish you in a manner that you do not become a burden, for as much as you're helping people. But remember that you can only fill from a full cup, not an empty cup. And if you have any other way that you can manage black tax, or any other thoughts or any other opinion that you've got in regards to this hot topic, we would like to know. We'd like to hear from you on the comment section. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and keep tuned for the next one. Thank you and be blessed.
Bye-bye.
Bye.